You are watching or listening to Purham and Associates. For more information, go to www.rpurham.com. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Permanent Associates. I am your host, Randy Purham, and I on this midweek special, if you want to call it that, I guess. It's a lot going on, so gotta get everybody through the cycle here, and yeah. But we got a very special guest with us today, actually, because this conversation you're gonna like. And so we have none other than special Spencer Morrison. Excuse me. He's the author of Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home, and Revive the American Dream. He is also a lawyer, sessional instructor of law, and independent intellectual with a focus on applied philosophy, empirical history, and practical economics. He is also the editor-in-chief of the National Economics Editorial. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the some and presenting the others, Mr. Spencer Morrison. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, my friend. Thanks for having me on the program.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Let me ask you, Spencer, who is your favorite philosopher and why?
My favorite philosopher. I don't know if I've ever got that question before. I think the obvious answer has got to be Aristotle. You got to go right back to the beginning. I love Aristotle, and the reason I love Aristotle is because I think he's really the sort of the founding father of inductive reasoning and inductive philosophy. And what I mean by that is, Plato. Everything that Plato did was based on deductive logic. So he would start from a premise, and then he would work down and find truth in that way. Aristotle was really interesting because he looked at the evidence, sort of like a lawyer. He would look at the evidence, and he would take from that patterns, and then he would build his theory off those patterns. And that inductive reasoning from examples to a specific rule is the way that we do science. It's the way that we do law, and it ought to be the way that we do economics.
Yes, very true, very true. Thank you for that, because I don't get to ask that question often, but when I see somebody says they like philosophy, I'm like, ooh. and like you, I like Aristotle is one of my favorites as well. So what area of law do you focus on?
So my day job, I do general civil litigation. I do some family law. I do some divorces, wills and estates.
Okay, gotcha. Good deal.
Whatever pays the bills.
Yeah, exactly. You could be like, hey, I need a lawyer for immigrant. I got you. I can do that too. Let me grok it real fast and learn. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, exactly. And that Grok AI is pretty good, actually. I have this. We have this really expensive Lexus AI, and the Grok is much, much better, even though it's like, 2% the cost. So there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, President Trump was over in the Europe, in the EU over the weekend, and he came out with a trade deal. And I know a lot of people were like, with the tariffs that's going on and everything else, we're gonna be broke. We're gonna go into a recession. The stock market's gonna crash. The exact opposite has happened, and with the announcement of this trade deal from the European Union, I want to get your thoughts on: is there egg on the face of these naysayers, or is there going to be some kind of like cataclysmic event that's going to unfold afterwards?
Yeah, we're going to find out. So when I read the terms of the deal in broad strokes, I thought it was too good to be true. I thought there's no way that the European Union actually agreed to this. The deal is entirely asymmetrical in the United States' favor, which up until President Trump started doing these negotiations, that was unheard of, right? That was unheard of. America always gets ripped off. So this is an amazing deal on paper. The question is whether or not it's even viable from Europe's perspective. The main thrust of the deal, of course, is that there's a 15% tariff rate on imports from Europe. That's asymmetrical because at least on paper, the European Union is supposed to lower its tariff rates. We'll see if that happens. If it did, that would be a really big win. But what's really interesting in this deal is that there's two pledges. There's a pledge from Europe to invest $600 billion in the American economy, and then there's a pledge that they'll buy $750 billion over 3 years of American energy products. So, natural gas, oil, oil technologies, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so when you think about that, those are dollar amounts, almost sort of like tribute. In a way, I crunched the numbers, for example, on the energy products. If Europe were to, they either essentially have to stop importing energy resources from the rest of the world and make them entirely dependent on the United States, which would be fantastic because that would be a lot of leverage, or they'll end up paying $250 a barrel for the American oil. So I don't even know if it's feasible. I mean, it's almost too good to be true.
I agree with you there. It is almost too good to be true, especially on to your point, to the energy side of the house, because when you think about it, and I lived in Germany and in Italy for some years, and you see how the energy industry works in Europe, right? And a lot of their imports come from Russia. So we got the Nord Stream pipelines and all that kind of stuff going on over there. They essentially will have to cut off that production or that import and take on United States products.
That's correct. Yeah.
If they do that, Russia will be pissed off, and and Ukraine will suffer in the process all over again. So I don't know. You're right. It is too good to be true. If it does happen, I think there's gonna be some I guess you could say some economic shifting going on in both Europe and in the Middle East, because to your second point about the price of oil by the barrel, the OPEC would have to then either ramp up production and charge more for external users outside of Europe that's importing oil, or they're going to decrease and say, you know what, hey, y'all figure it out. Since Europe is buying from the United States, you get from the United States too. Screw it. It could be that. But the negative impact of these tariffs, we see it happening over in Africa right now. The country Lesotho, their garment industry is being impacted by the tariffs. There are thousands of people being laid off from their jobs over there. Can you talk to us about how the United States tariffs is negatively impacting other countries that are not playing ball with the with us in those terms?
Yeah, certainly. And so, I mean, tariffs are, to some degree, they can be used as a political tool. They can also be used as an economic tool. And of course, they have positive and negative consequences depending on, if you're on the receiving end of them or not, right? Exactly, yeah. So they're a very flexible political tool. I did hear about the economic dislocation that's happening in Lesotho. They're not the only country that's hit by this. Of course, there's lots of countries that haven't come to the table. They're not playing ball, and consequently, they've been hit with pretty significant tariffs. The European Union, for one. I mean, this is really why they bent the knee, ultimately, right? Yeah, so I mean, I think anytime that you're in a negotiation, though, you need leverage. Otherwise, you're not going to get a positive result. And access to America's consumer market, which is the biggest consumer market in the world, and that really is America's leverage, right? It's sort of like America is the Walmart of global consumption, right? Everybody wants their stuff on Walmart, right?
Yeah.
Because if you got a product, and if you get your product on the shelves at Walmart, you are going to make a killing.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true in America. If you can get your product into America, you're going to make a small fortune, sometimes a very big fortune. So people want to do that. And as a result, a lot of these guys are going to have to eat the tariffs, right? Because you think about if Walmart said, look, you're going to have to lower your prices or you're not on the shelf. Everybody lowers the prices to get on the shelves.
Yep.
Same thing is true of tariffs. President Trump says, look, you got to pay 15% to get on the shelves. A lot of manufacturers from foreign countries are going to say, it's still a good deal.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. And I love that analogy of the United States being the Walmart for the rest of the world, because you're absolutely right. I never contextualized it that way, but you're absolutely right. We are, and we are creatures of habit at that. So it's very predictable as to what we want, how we want it, and when we want it. So there are other countries. Other countries are like, what can we come up with next to sell to these idiots? And boom, there it is. and we go buy it.
It's just like Walmart.
Yep, just like at Walmart, exactly. And it's stuff that we don't even need at time. Have time. Just like when you go to Walmart, you go in there for one specific item, and you come out with like $300 worth of extra stuff that you intend to spend. So
That's the truth.
I'm guilty of that all the time. But I want to jump into your new book. Congratulations on this, by the way. Reshore, how tariffs will bring our jobs home. I screwed that up at the beginning. How tariffs will bring our jobs home and revive the American dream. Talk to us about the book and what made you what motivated you to write it.
So I've been writing about this topic for about 10 years now, and really got no love for the first 9 years. We'll put it that way. But during that time, I was able to do a lot of research on this subject, and I learned quite a bit. The fruits of that labor is summarized in this book. This book really is the blueprint on how to grow the economy and how to bring the industry home. For context, America's been running this large chronic trade deficit. A trade deficit is when the country buys more than it sells abroad. We've been doing that every year since 1974. And we spent a tremendous amount of money. So if you think about the total value of that trade deficit and then you adjust it for inflation, because of course money spent 20 years ago is worth more than money now. The total value of that deficit is over $28 trillion. That's like a whole year's worth of economic production. And that's the value of the products that we bought from foreign countries like China over and above, that we sold them. So that's essentially money in the hole, money that should have been spent building the future. Instead, we were buying it. So in Reshore, I talk about, how the economic problems that has caused, right? It's caused huge amounts of economic dislocation within America, everything from deindustrialization to the loss of about 12 million jobs. That includes manufacturing jobs and then the service jobs that are sort of built on those jobs. Decreased GDP and economic growth. And then, I talk about how do we fix it. And the best way to fix it is to raise tariffs to make those imports more expensive so that people shift that economic production back to America and people buy American. And the goal is to not pay the tariffs because you're buying American to begin with, right? That's the beautiful thing about tariffs. They're an avoidable tax.
That's true. That is true. I didn't think about that aspect of it. It is an avoidable tax if they just brought the companies back to the United States, build in America, and then hey, there you go. But the other impact also is on the housing market. Because you have the what am I looking for? Like materials, wood, and everything else. Everything that goes into a house to building a house is impacted by these tariffs because we're importing from these other countries as well. And so you're seeing a decrease in raw materials now in terms of the taxation and the pricing for that. So now we're having a boom because I live here in Austin, Texas. Okay, and so
Mhm.
the construction of apartment complexes is on the rise, and I cannot leave out I cannot leave out my house without seeing a new project going up. I'm like, that wasn't there last week. so so there it's growing, and and here in Texas, they say that we're getting like 1,000 residents a day in Texas. It's a Texas,
Wow, wow.
so that's why we're going into the redistricting gambit and all that good stuff. But I want to get your thoughts on with these kind of impacts going on, growth in population in the United States, the tariffs hitting these countries, and all this economic boom that we're experiencing, not only through the stock market but just in general with the trade deals. Do you see, and also deportation, because the
Yeah, yeah.
deportation is actually benefiting uh, job growth, and people are
Yes.
not understanding how that works. They're like, wait a minute, how is it that we're getting rid of people but it's benefiting job growth? It's because wages,
Hmm. Hmm.
paying
Exactly.
illegal immigrants lower wages actually hurts the economy and the job growth.
Can I talk about that for a minute? I
Please,
think
I was
that's a
just going to say,
really,
what's your
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. I mean, yeah, people need to understand that. I want to tie this to the trade deficit as well.
Hmm.
So the American worker, for decades has just been getting absolutely hammered on both ends. On the one hand, what we're doing when we have this trade deficit is we're offshoring our production to these foreign countries, right? So we're taking like a factory in Illinois and we're moving it to China. And the reason that we're doing that is because the labor in China is a lot cheaper, right? So American workers, if they want to keep their jobs, ultimately they're now in a global price race to the bottom for their labor. So American workers are now competing with people in China, with people in India, with people in Mexico for the same jobs. And of course, they can't win that because the labor standards in America are so much higher, right? This is why so many jobs have left our shores, and this is why we need to reshore them. But the same process actually occurs within our borders because of immigration. This is both mass legal immigration and illegal immigration because both of them really they're adding a lot of people into the economy, a lot of people who are typically working lower wage jobs. And those people are now competing directly with American workers for jobs, right? So it's the same thing. Either the jobs move abroad and you're now fighting with Mexicans for offshore jobs, or people move to the country legally or illegally and they're competing with jobs for you here. So either way, there's really a lot of negative price pressure on those wages, and it's really just killing
Hmm.
the American worker. It's awful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And thank you for mentioning, legal immigrants coming into the country because I'm actually, it was just
There's a lot of them too, my friend.
a lot of them, yes. And I was just going to say, I'm talking with one, I was talking, in conversation with one about that. He's from India. He's from India. And he's in the tech industry here in Austin. And so
Mm,
the tech industry here, what do you call them, chips, the microchips, the microchips, and just the general Tesla is another company. So a lot of these guys are coming and gals are coming over here under the visa programs, the various types of visa, whether it's a work visa, school visa, what have you.
got
They're
your H-1B guys
yeah,
too.
yes, exactly. And so they're they're coming in under negotiation tactics of, hey, yeah, I'm worth 80,000 a year, but go ahead and give me 65. That other 15, you can extend my visa out for a few years. I stay here as long as you like, and they take all these reduced benefits, and the
Yeah.
company's like, cool, okay, and because now I don't have to hire Randy who wants $75,000 plus benefits, so we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of people don't understand how that works, and now there's this big backlog of, I guess you could say, immigrants from other countries with the same skill sets as American people the backlog is so large that they're on standby as these people that are currently here, excuse me, term out. Then they just recycle, and then the American worker is still sitting out in the cold, like, okay, what's going on? I can't get a job. But there's a
You know what the most disgusting part of that is?
yeah.
The most disgusting part of that is that these companies and these foreign governments invest tons and tons of money into making these state-of-the-art schools specifically to train people to work these jobs. They're getting tons and tons of STEM investment, in southern India, for example, in Bangalore. These guys have invested billions and billions and billions of dollars building these schools to train these tech people. And guess where they're not investing the money in the schools? Here in America. Because, rather than investing in our own people, we're investing in people in foreign countries because they're cheaper, and then we bring them here to take our jobs. And your average American person, the ladder has been kicked out from under them.
Yeah.
It's been kicked out from under them. How are you supposed to climb the ladder without an education? It's very difficult to get into the upper class. Like, from my perspective, my mom, she was a secretary. My dad, he was a waiter, right? Neither of them went to college. And then I was, lucky enough to get into university. I became a lawyer. Now I'm a small business owner. And this professional education was really the way that I was able to build myself up in life. That's not available to young people anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's increasingly not available to people who want to become lawyers too, because they're importing tons of foreign lawyers. They're importing tons of foreign doctors. They're importing tons of foreign engineers. Everything. How are young people supposed to get ahead in life when everybody from all over the world is coming here and taking their jobs for pennies on the dollar? It's disgusting.
Yeah, and to add salt to the wounds already, there's AI, that's also playing an integral role in the job replacement, market, because you have like we were just talking about in the green room, Grok. I could essentially be a lawyer overnight.
Grok's pretty clever, man.
It is, it is, and so you have that coupled with foreigners coming in. They're utilizing AI to assist where they're lacking, to make them even a more attractive, I guess you could say, agent for those companies that they're looking to hire foreigners. So the Americans, we I guess you could say we shot ourselves in the foot here back in the 70s with the Department of Education, and we compounded that with having a disinterest in these various fields, like in the STEM fields. I'm wondering, how do we recover from that? How do we should the president, should this administration, or even the next administration? I don't think it's going to happen in this administration. The next administration coming in, should they say, you know what, we're gonna just cut off foreign folks coming in to get jobs. We're not going to do any visa programs. We're just going to put a moratorium on it. We're going to pause it for a few years and try and get ourselves caught up. Is that something viable, or what are your thoughts on how we get back on track?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to recognize is that this is now a generational problem, right? It took us 50 plus years to get here. We're not going to solve it in the next 3 years. There's just no way. If we're serious about solving these problems, so there's a couple of things that I would argue that we need to do. Number one, we need to impose high and stable tariffs that are high enough that it's actually going to facilitate the reshoring of America's industry from all of these developing countries, particularly China. So that needs to happen, because if America doesn't have an industrial base, if America doesn't make steel and cars and computers, America's not really a viable country anymore. That's just the way it is, right? So we need that. We need to fix the economy. The second thing that we need to do, and this is probably more important, frankly, is we need to get the immigration under control. So I think, a lot of these people who came here recently, in particular, the people who are here on these sort of temporary work visas, they need to go home. And we need to invest in America's human capital, right? We need to invest in our own people to do these jobs. The deportations, you really should be deporting every illegal immigrant or almost every illegal immigrant. I get that there might be some exceptions somewhere, whatever, but like 99% of them probably got to go, right?
Yeah. True.
And then in terms of immigration on an ongoing basis, it's got to be reduced to a reasonable number, and it should probably be, calibrated better in terms of, sort of the countries that these people are coming from. And what I mean by that is, like immigration from, Canada or Australia, for example, is not really a problem. And the reason for that is because you don't have, Canadians and Australians clamoring to get into the country. Americans want to go there just as much as those people want to come here because there's similar levels of economic development, it's similar levels of education, it's similar lifestyles, right? So when people actually do move from those countries, they're usually moving for a really good reason, right? And they will very likely contribute to the economy in a positive way. It's very easy to integrate somebody from another, English-speaking country, obviously. It's very different, though, when people... Yeah, it's different for people from India, though, right? Because they're coming from a place where the average wage in India is 1/24th what it is in America, right? So they're willing to work for pennies on the dollar. And, of course, they have a very different culture. It's hard for them to blend in because, they're not Christian. They have a different ethical outlook on life, So it's difficult to assimilate them, right? So... I think, if we're being honest, the focus needs to be on, putting America first. And I'm not saying that there's nobody from anywhere in the world that can come here and contribute. I mean, there's probably lots of Indians that are contributing, to the country in a really positive way. But, do we really need to, 400,000 H-1Bs a year, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And to your point on that, you're right. It's not that they're not contributing, but it's like, do we really need you? How come we can't have utilized the folks that we have here? Why not invest in the human capital of those that's here in the United States?
Exactly. And just to be clear, these people, they are contributing, but that's not the point. The point is, do our own people have an opportunity? Right. And the answer is no.
You're absolutely right about that. Talk to us about your Substack here. How can people, what people are expecting to find there, I should say?
Yes, sir. So people can follow me on Substack at Real SB Morrison. I post articles, about 2 per week. I usually post a long form one on Sunday where I have a debate or something like that. With someone. I think it's a really great Substack. I cover a lot of information that you're not actually going to get in the mainstream media. The focus on it is on economics. I'm really the only pro-tariff guy that's going to lay it out for you and tell you honestly, what the situation is. And then you can also follow me on X. It's also at Real SB Morrison.
Okay, cool. So, any final thought? Any final thoughts that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for listening. Society only works when people are checked in. So you got to check in. You got to explore all of these issues, right? When people on the news are talking about tariffs every day and saying that they're destroying the economy, you should really be thinking about this and learning both sides of the story before making it a decision on it, right? Because the reality is that tariffs are a tried and true method for growing the economy, dating all the way back to the founding fathers of America. The first piece of legislation in America was the Tariff Act of 1789. And of course, America prospered for over 150 years under high tariffs. This was Alexander Hamilton's, American system of economic development. And of course, when we dropped the tariffs, when we dropped to the gold standard, that's when all of these economic problems started creeping out of the woodwork. So history is different than what they're telling you. I think it's really important that you get a copy of my book, Reshore. It's available on Amazon. It's available directly from the publisher. And read it, because it's an economic history, that you're not going to hear anywhere else.
Absolutely. Spencer, thank you once again for being here today. Great amount of information. I truly appreciate it. And yes, I will encourage everyone to pick up your book, Reshore, and be safe out there, and God bless you, sir.
Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, all right, take care. ladies and gentlemen, Spencer Morrison, like we were just saying, go pick up the book. Reshore how tariffs will bring our jobs home and revive the American dream. And a lot of people argue that, and this has been discussions I've been part of for the last couple of days on Facebook. A lot of people are arguing that immigrants that are here illegal keyword key operative word there, illegal immigrants that are here, they're coming in to because they're trying to escape oppression, get away from a deteriorating society, all this stuff, economically related type of issues, right? And the first thing I have to say to them is, well, they can face and have the same exact problems here in the U.S. Matter of fact, it'll probably be worse because it's more expensive to live here than where they're coming from, number one. Number two, by them being illegal, they cannot fully participate in the American economy because, number one, they're illegal. Number two, they're undocumented and they don't have the proper identification to get jobs, to be able to go file taxes at the end and all that good stuff. They can't even serve on jury duty. They can't even go vote. So they have no voice. So there's all these different things that the American advocate for illegal immigration don't understand. Okay, and it's mind blowing. It's actually baffling to me how you do not equate this or understand this. But I also asked people, how about you, the American, sponsor one or two of these illegals, help them get through the whole process of becoming a naturalized citizen and all that. Let them live in your house. That you will see how much of an economic burden you're being put through. Exponentialize that, 10 times, because that's how much of an economic burden they are on the American economy through medical care, working jobs under wage. That actually creates a negative cash flow in the economy. So all these different things that they're doing that require them to be here, or is a requirement of them to be here, that is how it's impacting the rest of the American economy. Is when you see that, you will understand that. So, anyways, folks, I'm tired. Got a lot going on this week. So we got another guest coming up tomorrow. No, this is it. This is the last guest for the week. So, all right, I'm out of here, y'all. Be on vacation. So starting tomorrow, actually. Be on vacation. I'll be back next week. So probably be that following Friday that I come back on. Once you leave, you go out of town for a few days. You come back, you gotta play catch up, and that takes a few days. And for me. So, anyways, folks, be safe. God bless you all. And don't do anything crazy. And I hope I don't have to read about you while I'm on vacation. All right, y'all. Ciao. Be safe. Take care. God bless. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in today. Please be sure to follow, like, subscribe, and share. And go to rpurham.com for more information. See you all soon. Take care. God bless.